Here I am again. Hope I'm not boring you. But this week I wanted to follow on a bit from last week and pick up more on the theme of interdependence or interconnectedness. I know when I first heard Buddhist teachings, impermanence was everything I was seeing. That's how I kept seeing it. And then just before COVID, I was being touched by interdependence. And something similar started to happen. And I put together the first program. And that weekend, COVID really struck. And it became kind of like an experiential teaching on the impact of interdependence. So, yeah, I just feel like it's such a topic for the planet and for us right now. And that, we really need to be looking at the truth of interconnectedness. So, it's something that's really dear to my heart as the ramifications of not living as if it's true are just so huge. Our garbage affects others. The way we live has an impact. The air we breathe, we can know something of this truth. And, it's not just with human beings, it's with the whole system. So as this is coming to light, we just really need to find the way that we take this from being an intellectual understanding to being something that is deeply embodied and understood, so that we can live with respect for the multitude of kinds of life and patterns of life that we are co-inhabiting this universe with. As well, it's really a doorway into taking care of ourselves as a part of all beings. See, so when we take care of ourselves, this has a ripple effect of taking care of others, as nothing stands alone and independent. We see this when we look closely at our experience. So the benefits of understanding this are very vast, and it's really just the truth of the way things are on this relative level of life. So nature has been a key teacher for me in my own life. And a few years ago, I saw this documentary, Planetary. That was its name, Planetary. And so seeing it there was a convergence of my love of the teachings and of nature. And so it was very awe-inspiring to see something of our planet as it was depicted, and the truth of the interconnectedness, and what happens when we cling to a diluted sense of a separate self. And yet how awe-inspiring it is to look at the web of connection we live in. So the documentary began with astronauts who'd been out in space, sharing something of their experience and looking back at planet Earth. Not only was there the incredible beauty of seeing the shimmering blue light of the atmosphere of the earth that sustains us every day, or seeing the dancing curtains of the north and southern lights, or watching the way that the light shifts. Lights come on as the planet shifts into darkness, just that whole ripple effect. But there was also, they spoke of what it was like to look back at the planet amidst the entire universe, and how, it's light years away from so much that's going on. We're just this tiny speck of stardust, and yet all of the stardust is important, and that there's no one piece that is more important than others. And yet there's nothing inherently existing in this. It's such a play of illusion. Interconnectedness does become a little scarier when we look at the world and we see acts of violence, hatred, ill will, and think that we are connected to this too. And this is the place where we build the walls of separation because it feels too much, too scary. It's where we numb out, we get depressed, and we lose any sense of agency. It would be too much if we carried the thought that we are responsible for the shifting of all of this. What we are responsible for is the seeds that we plant in the face of all of this. Do we perpetuate the anger and the violence, or do we look to how we can stay in touch with the qualities of love, compassion, and wisdom? Which doesn't mean it always feels good. It's not a glossing over, because at times we're confronting our painful tendencies, or we're bringing the voice of wisdom in a room that is an echo chamber of delusion. So, when we hear in the teachings that our sense of a solid, separate self, independently living, is what creates the separation. And through this separation, that's where the numbing happens. What we are doing, we create more pain. And out of this, we're able to desecrate the planet. And so we see how we've taken the notion of the individual so far that it leaves us cut off, lonely, and depressed. And we no longer think of ourselves as being a part of nature, that we're separate from, that we forget. And in our minds, we feel we need to be selfish in order to survive, which is anxiety producing. And there's a sense of lack and something wrong. So we explore through meditation how we can look at the habits that keep us feeling separate and isolated, such as trying to control our experience. And this becomes something that affects not just us, our controlling, it tends to affect those around us. But this too was probably something we picked up from others who lived with a level of fear and felt they needed to control the world according to what makes them feel more secure and comfortable. And so we learn to be with ourselves in the midst of a messy life and see what's contributing to it. And out of that, often there's deep compassion. And out of this too, we start to see that there is nothing separate. And so when our friends are suffering and we understand their suffering is not separate from us, and this just brings that natural responsiveness of the heart. And then as we dive deeper into the interplay, we start to see amidst all this play of conditions, there is nothing that stands independent, self-existing. And so we begin to see the nature beyond nature. And so how we take care of our hearts and minds, we also take care of the world around us, and how taking care of the world around us is also taking care of ourselves. And it becomes not so scary, but simply the living and the honoring of our hearts, which are continually reminding us that we do have these qualities within us, as do all living beings. So honoring this truth of interconnectedness.